Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another GameDay Squad Aussie Rules live show. We are here today to, of course, talk about and preview round 12, and I'm joined by a very good friend of mine, Bales at Fantasy Fanatics, mate. How are you going? Are you ready to rip in, talk about the round it's about to be, and hopefully dominate for the both of us?
Yeah, g'day Tom, g'day everyone. Yeah, looking forward to tonight. I thought it was only fitting that you jumped on with me last night, so I'd jump on with you tonight. I thought it would be good to chat some fantasy, mate. So yeah, looking forward to chatting some Game Day Squad ahead of round 12. And the good thing is with the bye weeks, Game Day Squad, we can change our squads the whole lot, so we don't have to have any potential trades or anything like that. We can change it all. But it makes for very interesting round ahead for sure.
On the thought of that, big news coming out today for the Game Day Squad community. We have a brand new competition that's going to be starting off just in, I think it's 2 rounds. Ooh. It's going to be called the Contender. It's going to sit in between our starter and classic competition, and it's brand new. And it's going to be restrictions for who can play. So our top coaches and champion and challenger are not going to be able to compete in this one. So it's going to be a fair chance for if your fantasy team's not doing so well and you want something brand new for all the fantasy fanatics out there that may be watching, get on board with Game Day Squad. Hey. Bales has got a nice little code for you at Bales DT, and you get some bonus packs on top. There's never been a better time to get started because with this brand new competition, we're going to see who's truly going to be able to dominate and come up with the best strategy to win.
Yep. No, looking forward to it. I don't know if I'll be able to jump in there because I'm in all the other comps, but should be good fun. Even more gives even more people a chance to take home some prizes, packs, whatever. It's always good fun. More packs, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more, mate. There's nothing better than doing well in a round and then getting your reward packs. Although, sad thing is, I haven't been doing that too often this season, so it's been a lot of starters for me, in all honesty. But we've got a lot of people here in the chat tonight, welcoming Auntie Booger, Cow's here, and Stealth, a good friend of the show as well. So if you do have any questions for round 12, by all means, drop them. But we're pumped to brand new competition, and the winner of that brand new competition will be winning a prize card in the last spot of the prize card draft at the tail end of this season. There'll only be one up for grabs, but whoever can take at the top of the top will be rewarded with that. So that's how good already. I'm pumped. Let's get into it, Bales. Let's get into it. Round 12. For some reason, I'll be honest with you, I was doing my rankings and doing my squad, and I don't know how I really struggled to make some decisions. And it just felt like it was a bit more complicated than you would think, having 4 teams on a bye. You'd think it would make it easier, but somehow it became harder for me to build my squad. I don't know if you had that same feeling.
No, pretty straightforward, to be honest. Too easy.
Oh, no.
I guess that the mistakes I've made in the past, particularly with the last year, was that you'd accidentally go, oh yeah, put this guy in because other players are on bye, but then you sometimes forget, crap, they're on bye as well. So it's like you just got to remember that you don't put this week no Carlton, no Dogs, no Port, and no who's the other team? North. Don't put any of those players in your squad.
Yep.
But any other team, go nuts.
Well, that's it. And speaking of the season and going nuts, Buzz, you've been doing quite well yourself, mate. What are you sitting currently in the top 20 for the seasonal in Classic? So you're right in that prize card hunt. We're just nearly about halfway through the season, I think, after this round. So you're right in a great spot to be competing for that big reward. But Bales, how we normally kick off this show is we go through some of the lineup news. So we'll talk about, out of the teams that aren't on the bye, other players that you either might want to avoid or consider based upon who's in and out. And then we'll get into some rankings and show off our squads to wrap it all up, and of course, answer any questions along the way. But tonight's game will be the Lions and the Dons. Don't know about you, not too many big people in or out. There's a lot of great fantasy players. It's going to be a lot of eyes on. You've got the likes of Zorko, Dunks, Neil, Merritt, Martin, and a couple of pods here and there as well. So I can imagine lots of coaches will be having eyes on. But in terms of ins and outs, nothing too major there in terms of fantasy, at least for Game Day Squad. The next game, we've got the Pies taking on the Hawks. Darcy Moore's back in. Pendles, Bobby Heel, Schultz, and Sidebottom back in for Collingwood as well. So all of their reinforcements have come back sort of after a rest or coming off injury. But it does mean that Maynard is out due to injury. Cox is out, and Markov out as well. But just be shuffling a couple personnel there. And Impey back in for Hawthorn. So he was out last round. He's back in, one of their elite ball
on the
users.
bench. You saw he's on the bench for Hawthorn.
Who's on the bench for Hawthorn?
Finn McGuinness. So is that going to be a tag for Nick Dacos? That'll be that's something I think a lot of people are going to be very interested to see.
Oh, absolutely. We'll talk about that a little later, but I'm very, very nervous about that game and what may happen to some personnel there and what their role will be throughout. Next game is the Suns taking on Freo, the way to go. So what have we got? Moyle in, Lombard in, Pfeiffer's back in, Sean Darcy comes back in as well, which I didn't see this before making my rankings, which might change a couple of things. And I definitely think it will change something. I'll talk about the direct sub I'll make a little later, but I was not too keen on starting Jackson. We spoke about this last night on your show, Bales, but just because of the role, we thought we've got to do it. But if Darcy's back in, with Witts also being one of the best defensive rucks in the comp, I think that's just a bigger void now, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Giants, Richmond, Josh Kelly back in, and then Toby Nankervis and Tommy Lynch back in for the Tigers. Toby just being rested, so he's going to be fit and ready to go against the Giants this round. Yep. The next game, it's our little rivalry, Bales. Swannies taking on the Crows. For the Swans, Melican, McInerney, Caleb Mitchell comes in, and then for the Crows, Brodie Smith, Taylor Walker in. Rory Laird is out being managed.
My boy's been rested. What's going on there?
He normally plays pretty good against the Swans. That might be a good thing for us.
You're only saying that because of those couple of kick-ins that he had last year in the final game of the round. I think he turned over both his kick-ins, and it led to Swans goals. So that's the only reason you're saying that Laird plays well against Sydney, I reckon.
Oh, mate, look, fair enough. And
there's no denial either.
No denial. I won't deny. Got some comments here. We have someone. It's Melissa coming in from Mykonos. Well, hopefully you're having a fantastic time over there, and your squad.
Right. I'm jealous. Very jealous.
Yeah, I know. How good's that? Coming in all the way. We've got a question about two players later. I'll get into that soon for you, Lincoln. Two last games here. We have Melbourne Demons versus the Saints. Jack Viney in for Melbourne, and then nothing too significant after that. And the last one, West Coast Eagles versus Geelong. Like normally, if you're just watching this as an AFL fan, you sort of know what's going to happen. But as a fantasy coach, this is what dreams are made of. There's going to be so many eyes on this game. And I have a feeling a lot of people will be starting players that are going to be in this. But in terms of the ins and outs, Jake Waterman out for the year. So big loss for the Eagles, unfortunately. But they do get a couple back in, and then nothing too significant on Geelong's side. So that wraps us up for the ins, the outs, and make sure to avoid any of the four teams that are on a bye before submitting your squad for this round, as Bales you touched on.
Yep, exactly.
Mate, let's get into some rankings. You ready to rumble?
Yep, let's go.
Let's do it. All righty. I'm going to pull up on screen right now my positional rankings. I've got two locks for the round. I've got Isaiah Wanganeen-Millera, and I've got Maxi Holmes. This is purely based off form for Wanganeen-Millera. He's probably become the best defender in terms of fantasy in the competition over the past couple of rounds. He's just dominant. He just does everything, and he looks to keep getting better and better. And then Maxi Holmes this round, we spoke about him last night. He's looking fit again, and he's got one of the best matchups in all of footy against West Coast. That late game on Sunday. So he's going to be playing in the midfield. He'll be all over the ground, mind you. He just is like that. He's a workhorse. He'll do his thing. He'll run loose, and he's going to have a big game. So they're my two locks, and this is where I'll start. But after that, this is where it'll get a little spicy. But Nick Martin's going to be there at 3 for me. Bales, I gave you credit last night. I'll give you credit again tonight. You a couple of weeks ago said Nick Martin's role has changed, and he's started to play games where he has 100% time on ground, and that's just massive. That opportunity to score will equal fantasy points, especially for a player of his talent. So I'm pretty sure you're pretty big on him with those comments being said, but how good is it finally being able to watch Nick Martin just flourish in this brand new role at the Dons?
Oh, he's been fantastic. Like last week, that last quarter having over 70 game day squad points, and that was just a thing of beauty. It was just like goodness just watching that last quarter. So his role's great, right? He's not going to get tagged because Zach Merritt's the number one guy there. And he can essentially just do what he wants. It's almost like, it reminds me of what Nick Dacos was doing before he went to the mids, where he's up in defense. He was just able to go wherever the hell he wants. Nick Martin's able to do that. He's able to go defense, forward, wing, midfield, whatever. He had some CBAs last week as well, which is good. So I just think he's a guy that just don't overthink. Just chuck him in and enjoy him in defense this year, because next year will be even better because we'll have him as a forward at this stage.
Absolutely. And we've got a question here from Lincoln O'Brien over on X. Max Holmes or Nick Martin? You can see
both
where I'm sitting with this, but what about you, Bales?
Both. You go both. If you can get both in, you go both. If you have to choose one and you can't choose one or the other, you go Holmes this week for the matchup. As you say, he's got the lock there, so he's number 2, number 3. I'd agree with that. But yeah, I think both. You just have to have both in.
Couldn't agree more. As my rankings say, you got to start both. They're both in my top 7 defenders for the round. So absolutely with that. Auntie Booger's saying commitment, Mel, 100%. Cow's asking, where's Short?
Still injured, unfortunately.
Davino Dude is saying, I'm scared of Martin. And,
he
good reason.
Yeah. He's got the ceiling, right? I think besides those 2 games where he had the corky against Collingwood in the wet and then the game after against North when he was still struggling with that corky, every other game he's gone over 120 in game day squad. That's just showing how big he's, and I think actually might be even 130 in game day squad. So he's just been an absolute gun. And yeah, you have to start him, I think.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Bales, but I can't, the Lions don't ever really implement a tagging sort of role for anyone. And even when they have at this point of the season, I can only remember one game. It was against Collingwood. Berry went to Dacos, and it wasn't even that effective of a tag. Yeah. So Berry they're going to back in their squad.
Berry does sometimes. Dunkley probably goes stoppage, but there's not really a tag. Brisbane back in there. Brisbane a bit like the Crows. They just back in their system. And so Martin will be going cream. Martin won't be the tag anyway. To be Zach Merritt, if anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mel's saying, Martin has found some solid form, and absolutely he has. He's been the shining light. There are a couple of players who have sort of dropped out of the top 7, like Tommy Stewart and Sicily and, these big names that we spoke about in years prior. But
no Tom Stewart chat. I can't. After the stress he put me through the first few weeks, I can't do it.
Okay, mate. I'll can it there for you then, just for your sanity.
I'm joking.
But next on my list, we'll quickly fly through this. Number 4, I've got Sinclair. Man, he's looking so good. He's just that tandem of Wanganeen Miller and Sinclair is just unreal. The Saints have a pretty good matchup this week against the Demons. They do like to give up fantasy points sort of all over the ground. So I can imagine both of them will be getting very busy, hence why I've got them both in there. Lockie Whitfield, I've got him in on this team.
Number 5. Now, you said last night you were fading him potentially. So why is he at number 5 now? He's made a move in the ranks in 24 hours. What's happened?
So I don't like to start the exact same squad in both. I like to hedge my bets a little bit. And last night might have been a bit of an emotional hedge because there is a little bit that is concerned about Whitfield. And in my starter squad, in all fairness, Bales, I'm not actually starting Whitfield. I'm sticking with Ash, and I've got the other 6 defenders in there. But in my classic, where I really need to get things sorted, I just can't fade Whitfield because even if he is a half forward, it's one of the best matchups for half forwards in all of the game versus Richmond. So
Nick Martin last week, he had pretty much the same role, and he went 199. So Whitfield could do something similar.
Exactly right. So with the floor being so high for Whitfield, and last week I think was, wasn't the greatest showing from him, but I can't imagine him doing any worse than that. So if that's going to be his bad performances for this year in a really positive matchup, I think he's still worth the start, even with some question marks around what it might be and what we might see from him. So next is Zorko. He's another person that's playing tonight. I think he's going to just eat. There's no, who was it? Goodness. Kitty Coleman, sorry. Coleman's came back in, isn't back in again. So this would be 2 weeks in a row that he hasn't had Coleman back in the lineup. And we saw what he did last round. Amazing. And John Noble, very hard to get him in. I was seriously considering doing the double with Ash and Whitfield. But John Noble's just been so solid this year. And he's versing Fremantle, who play a very quick game. And there's going to be a lot of inside forward 50s, I can imagine, because of their play style with Clark coming off the half back and their midfielders just getting it nice and long entries inside their forward 50s. So I think Noble's going to have a great chance to get his hands on the footy and score really well. And we've seen at multiple times this year, he's had 20 plus kicks. So he's got a really good role and he's going to be doing the majority of kicking duties. So sort of any points that we see coming in will only be good for John Noble in that game. And I'll be cheering him on. So hopefully he can outperform. But Ash, Salem and Bowie, very hard not to pick.
The Melbourne duo is not too bad. Bit of a pod because a lot of people are going to put the St Kilda duo, Holmes, Martin, and probably Whitfield and Zorko. So it's probably that last spot. I think that those Melbourne duo against the Saints who get up points could be a bit of a sneaky play up at Alice Springs on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to pick the right one of the two is always going to be the big factor.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ash is very ever so slightly not in this one. And again, may change my mind. But Noble, I think I'm going to stay strong with him. I have for the past couple of rounds. And honestly, his bad games aren't even too bad. Like last week was bad by his standard and it was only 108 fantasy points. And we've seen that 130, 140 from him throughout the year.
Yep.
Anyone you think I've missed, Bales, or should we go on to the mids?
No, I don't think so. I think that's pretty much. I know Auntie Booger was just asking about Archie Roberts there. Probably not Brisbane at the Gabba. That's probably a pretty tricky matchup. I think if you had I just think with the Giants boys playing Richmond, Salem and Bowie playing St Kilda, and then all those top guys, I think Archie Roberts, not this week, but I like your thinking though, because Roberts has been very, very good in some good form and could be a bit of a pod. They've got some better matchups before their bye, so maybe something to look at in a couple of weeks.
He's a big pod, but defenders are really one of the hardest line groups to pick because of how strong and how good a lot of the players are playing. So it's very hard to play the pod Archie Roberts over an Ash, a Noble, a Martin, for example. Like, it's a big call to make. And look, if you nail it, how good. But I wouldn't be banking against some of those bigger names to not score well. Let's get into the mids, though. Bales, you're going to like my lock, my number one ranked mid.
Hey, my boy.
Yes.
Yes. The lady's not playing, so he is my boy this round. So, number one. I know that Cal at the very beginning of the stream as well.
Yeah, I was going to pull it up. I did remember this. I took a mental note, Bales.
The things bye weeks make you do that. I like that. No, but Dawson's obviously having a cracking year. I think he's ahead on a lot of Brownlow counts at this stage, so that makes me pretty happy sitting there. So Sydney though. Tough matchup. I know, obviously, with your classic side and that, maybe put some salary on him. But I think this is probably a week where I'm probably not looking to put a heap of salary on. Just with Jordan, Rowbottom, someone will go in, right? Sydney aren't going to let Dawson have a good game against them, right? Because of, obviously, him leaving. So, but I think his form, he's the second highest averaging player, I think, in the game, or the third highest averaging player. I think you've got to have him.
Second would be right, I'm pretty sure.
Baz and then I think it's Baz, Dawson, Gawn, I think. Or Gawn might be ahead of Dawson.
Baz,
sure.
Dawson, Zorko.
Oh, Zorko's ahead of Gawn. Okay, interesting.
They're all very tight, though. It's within a 1 point, 2 points sort of between that bunch there. So, yeah, anyone could take it this round, depending on results.
I think Dawson's that player, though, regardless of any attention. You just have to have some version of Dawson in your squad because he's got such a big ceiling. If you don't, a bit like you said with Whitfield, right? If you don't have him and he goes big, everyone's got him. You don't, you're losing out. So for me, you just got to have him there.
Absolutely. Mate, let's get on though. Number 2, I've got no locks after this. I feel like sort of any of these players you can pull in and out. But Tommy Green, such a good matchup against Richmond. He's been a little up and down this year, and I can reason with why some coaches might be hesitant to start Tom Green, but he has shown that he can dominate. He's had a 150, a 124 performance in back-to-back rounds, and he sort of had a 5-game stretch there where he looked like he was back to his best. So I think Tom Green's a go. You'll see a little later, but I'm also going to put some salary cap and I'm going to bank on it as well. So it can be a little frustrating to watch Green as in the NBA, they say a free throw merchant for old Shea. Tom Green is a handball merchant in this game.
Yeah. No SGA slander on him.
Sorry, cows watching. I had to drop.
Oh yeah, but
something in there.
I don't go for the Thunder, but I love SGA. Got him in a heap of fantasy leagues, so I can't have any slander from my guy.
Fair enough. Anyone that's watching along right now, whether you're starting them or not, drop in the comments a mid pod that you reckon is going to play really well this round. Because I feel like there's going to be a bunch out there where if you can nail them, they're going to be good to start. And with the 4 squads out or 4 teams out this round, it's going to be
I've got
open the
one.
door sort of even more. Why don't you start it off, Bales?
Oh, number 6. Number 6 is my pod this week. Jack Steele. He's I'm rolling with. So with McRae out and Melbourne obviously have given up some points. Jack Steele showed last week with no McRae is going to get more of the ball. I think it's a good matchup here. So I think Jack Steele can go pretty well. But really, any of these guys on the screen could be there.
Well, you can see I've got a couple people playing tonight. I've got Merritt 3, Dunkley 5. Dunkley's just safe as. He never really goes too high, never goes too low. He's just such a good mid. Knows his role, plays it so well. He's a leader on that team, and he just does a little bit of everything, which just always equates to about 120 and 130 fantasy points on a good day. I've got Sarong at number 4. In starter yesterday, I picked Brayshaw. In this one, I've picked Sarong. I have had a little look at the teams that have been versing the Suns recently, who's sort of been performing really well against them. And one thing I sort of noticed is those bigger type of midfielders, those inside mids who are really good at the contest, have been performing traditionally a little better against that Suns midfield throughout this season. One example was Jai Newcomb just a couple of weeks ago for Hawthorn. He was just so good in that contest, and then also around being able to get loose and get the ball. So I'm hoping that Sarong can be the better midfielder, but it's a really good matchup for both because you can see they're both in my top 10 here. Just Brayshaw just being faded out to Steele. So I think Freo are going to be on for a really good crack, and being able to pick the better between Sarong and Brayshaw will be another big decision I think people make for the round.
Yeah, agreed. I'm really keen to know though. So we got obviously just went through Sarong, Dunkley, Steele, and Brayshaw, but I'm interested to get your thoughts on 8, 9, and 10. Anderson, potential Wagner tag, Nick Dacos, potential Finn McGuinness tag, and then Petrarca against the Saints. I wouldn't be shocked if they send like a Windhager potentially his way, or even if a Jack Steele goes and maybe at stoppage. But any sort of concerns with those? I guess that's probably why they're the bottom of the 10, right?
Yeah, exactly right. I have big concerns that either or of those players could get tagged. I actually did initially have Noah Anderson in, but I just looked at the Brayshaw and Jack Steele and then reconsidered, and then I sort of came to the conclusion that I'm having Steele. Steele's in sneaky good form, like just quietly. His past 3-4 rounds have all been 115 plus, with a 132 and a 141 in 2 of those 4 games. So he's looking good. Jack McRae's been out, and we've noticed an uptick in production for sure since McRae's coming out of that midfield due to an injury. Jack Steele's sort of having to put the team on his back, though, and it's leading to a bit more points, which we always love to see. But big concerns for tags, Bales. We'll see your squad a little later, and you can talk through it. But would you have them sort of in that range, or do you have a little more confidence in one of, or maybe a couple of the players that I've got just outside of that top 6?
Of those 3, the person I probably think is less likely to be tagged is probably Petrarca, just because Windhager hasn't really been doing many jobs. But even still, Petrarca hasn't had that same ceiling that we've seen from him in the past. Like he hasn't. I don't think he scored over 140 in GameDay Squad this year, if I'm not mistaken. So he doesn't have the ceiling. And then Anderson, it'll be him or Rao that probably gets some attention. Anderson's probably the guy you can shut down more. He's the captain. He's probably the one you want to shut down more. And then Dacos, I'd be very hard pressed to have an argument with someone that Finn won't go to Nick Dacos. Like Sandwich's a good coach.
Oh, mate.
They're going to try and shut him down at least somehow. So I don't see Dacos going for 140, 150 game day squad points in this one. He might get to a 110, 120 at most. I think it might be
I'm banking on
quite a night. Spoiler alert, I don't have him in my current classic side either. So,
got you. A couple comments here. Neil getting tagged tonight. Bale's thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think he does. Neil has had a very good history against Essendon in his career. Last times they've tagged him, so I wouldn't be shocked if a Setterfield or a Durham or someone like that stands next to him. So yeah, I'm a bit worried.
Dan Verino, dude, agrees. Jack Steele, if that is considered a pod. And I think in 2025, we can consider him a pod with how good
Yeah.
the mids are. And Stealth coming in here saying actually Neil over Dunkley in his eyes
Spicy.
in round 12. Which, look, if Neil doesn't get tagged, this is very possible,
Very
if
real.
not probable.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Alrighty, I think we've summarized it pretty well. Let's get into some ruck rankings. And I have him there at number 2. I don't feel amazing about it.
I don't know if I like that one. I'm sorry, Tom.
That's okay. You don't have to love it. This is why they're my rankings. I make them. They're not the Bales rankings. They're the Tom rankings.
That sounded like the comment you made last night. It's when I asked you about if you go for New South Wales or Queensland, the state of origin. It's like, it's not state of where you live, it's state of origin. So just sound like that. That's quite funny. You come up with some good ones last couple of days. I like it.
Thanks, mate. I'm on fire, as I would say. Why don't you talk through them first, and then I'll get into why I'm starting. But what don't you love about number 2? What would you change in these rankings here in terms of rucks?
Yeah, so I think number 1, it's most consensus with no Cherry, no English this week, and Marshall up against him. I think that Gawn's the number 1. I think everyone's going to have him in their squads this way. I think this is where you can actually differentiate yourself and get a pot. A lot of people are going to go Marshall at number 4 there, but with him against Gawn, he didn't go well last year. So number 2 and 3, I think, become in play. I don't love Grundy purely for the fact he's been in great form. He's actually looked pretty good last few weeks. He's looked really good. Looked more like the Grundy of old, but he's coming against Riley O'Brien, and Riley O'Brien's almost been that ruck that just doesn't let you score. Like, he doesn't give you hit outs. He doesn't let you get marks around the ground. Yeah. I think Nank is the one. I think he's the pod. Not a lot of people are going to go Gawn and Marshall or Darcy Cameron because they're the top 3 averaging. But yeah, I like Nank this week. He's had a rest, freshen up against GWS. Briggs has been giving up points. I think Nank could have a pretty big week here. So I'd almost have him at number 2. But
fair enough.
I think with English and Cherry out and Marshall with a difficult matchup, I think that this is a week that is quite tricky for rucks outside of Gawn, I reckon.
Look, there's only a couple of points that split sort of. The Adelaide is technically the worst matchup in points against for rucks, so it is a little concerning. But Melbourne's not too far off, and that performance we saw last week from Grundy was against Maxi Gawn, scoring 147 fantasy points.
Yeah.
So it is a bit of this is definitely a pod play. I think most people would probably align with you, Bales, that they would be looking at Nank at number 2, especially in a good matchup against the Giants. But I guess I'm trying to be a little different here. I'm trying to look at an opportunity of a player who's in good form, who could potentially play well, and a lot of people will avoid. You mentioned the form already, but I'm hoping Grundy can put it together. We've seen 132, 122, and 147 over the past 3 rounds. But this will be one of his hardest tests yet, because the Crows and the Suns are probably the 2 sort of, let's call them quote-unquote death matchups for rucks. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I just couldn't do Marshall. I don't know. I know you're sort of in agreement, but I think I just see 2 rucks going against each other as a bigger void, in my opinion.
Yeah, very rarely do you have the 2 rucks both score well. Like we saw it with Nank and Cherry the other week when they both went massive, but very rarely do you see. You normally see one go well and then the other one a bit quiet.
Yeah, Auntie Booger made a really good point that last round we saw 2 rucks actually playing the same matchup that played really well. And 2 of the better
actually, last week,
ones.
Yeah, Gawn and Grundy. Yeah, so she did go quite well. But that, if we look at that game though, that was a really high scoring game in terms of those ceiling scores. Like you saw Gawn,
Chad Warner played good.
Chad Warner, even like a Heaney.
Oliver Kill. Yeah, there was
a lot of big scores. So I think that it's really comes down to how the game goes, and because it was so high scoring, I think that's what allowed it to happen. I think.
Fair enough. Let's get into our forwards. Any forward pods that people have for this round, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear it. But Bales, the reason I laughed, and I sort of mentioned yesterday, you're going 4 Geelong forwards, and asked, is that okay? Because I knew that I was bringing this to this show because Mana has been hard to get hands on, and I have one, and I'm using him in my classic side, but I'm going with Bailey Smith, my prize card, Brian Myers, Mana, and Jeremy Cameron, all in that last game.
Yeah, I think that the good thing with these 4 is because people go, oh, you can't play 4 because not all 4 are going to go well, but they all play different roles. Like Bailey Smith's an inside mid, and it just runs around everywhere. He's the number 1 scoring player in the game. Myers and Manor are probably the two that play the similar role, but I think against West Coast, they're going to get a lot of ball up further up the ground.
Well,
and then
Manor plays a bit more forward. Myers a bit more defensive.
Gets up the ground, yep. And then Jeremy Cameron could kick a bag, right? So obviously McGovern's still not there. And Jeremy Cameron, I think, is going to have his way with those West Coast defenders over there. So I think all four are really good picks. If you've got a Manor, obviously he's a bit of a rare one. But Cozzy Pickett at 2. That's a little bit spicy, but I like it.
Yeah, he's elite. And some weeks ago, Bales, I had Cozzy Pickett in my top 7 rankings and was just drilled by our comment section here saying, how is Pickett in there? He doesn't deserve it. But I saw the potential. I saw the role in the CBAs, and he just keeps delivering. Maybe after watching him kick, was it 5 on my Swans last week? Maybe he's climbed up the rankings a little.
Any apologies yet?
There've been some apologies, and then there've been some drawbacks, and then there's more apologies coming in. So I think the community's a little divided on whether they're sold on Pickett being a stud forward in terms of fantasy. But look, last round, 152. If we go off the past 3 rounds, he's turned up in each, with 117 being the lowest score of those 3. His role is there. He's just so important to the Demons if they're going to win. And I just don't see really anyone sort of going with him. He's going to play some time in the midfield. He's going to be a mismatch in the forward line. And I'm big on Cozzy Pickett. His upside is really good. His flaws are a little lower than maybe some of the others that we're going to discuss, Bales. But when he's on, he's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at Cal's comment. He's just put in the chat there. That's funny.
No Shea slander. He must be on a bit of a delay. How long ago was that?
That was like 10, 15 minutes ago. That's funny.
Yeah, good man, Bales, he said. You're defending his boy. I didn't get to slip through the cracks, unfortunately. He called me out.
That's funny.
But Myers, man, this is a good conversation. I think we should talk about it briefly here, Bales. You mentioned yesterday, we've definitely seen an uptick in terms of his performance and his role and what he's doing. He's getting his boot on the ball a lot more. What have you liked from Brian Myers, especially in the past couple of rounds compared to the start of the season?
Well, I think the big part of why he sort of went off a little bit was because he had that concussion on Easter Monday. Missed a few weeks. People probably forgot about him, but he's just a consistent player. Like he actually reminds me a little bit of Rory Laird as like in terms of their scoring patterns, right? So they'll go.
You had to bring Laird in.
But seriously though, right? So they'll score a lot of scores between 85 and 105. They'll have the odd 60 and they'll have the odd 120, but they'll mostly just be pretty consistent with what they're doing. And I think Myers is that guy. He's just going to, if you want to like one of your F6 or F7 or whatever, just to put up an 85, 90, like without too many worries, I think Brian Myers is probably your guy. I think he's consistent. He gets involved. Geelong like getting the ball in his hands. He's a really good kick inside the forward 50. So I think that he's just finding some really good form. They've got a good run of fixtures now. So I think that he's someone that you've got to be definitely considering, if not putting into your squad over the next couple of weeks.
For sure. Auntie Booger says the Catters, big Cats fan. We'll definitely be watching this game with many eyes on and cheering on your boys, especially in the forward line, all 4 of them.
Yeah.
Mate, good points. And yeah, Myers last week, I think it was the Thursday night the Catters played against the Dogs, and I didn't start him. I had him outside of my top 7, and I think he had 7 kicks in the first quarter, and instantly I knew I made a mistake. It only took that quarter to realise, okay, he's back to playing some of his best footy. And it was tough to watch the rest of the game, seeing how good he was. But your boys next, Rankin. You got Rankin in your squad as well, or are you nervous about the Sydney matchup at all?
Yeah, I've got him in there just because I think he's one of those guys he's probably chucking every week. But it's slightly nervous because if Dawson doesn't get the attention, Rankin will be the guy that gets the attention.
It's Rankin.
I think Jordan can probably match up better on a Rankin than a Dawson. I think he can match up okay on both. But I remember last year, the game at Adelaide Oval, Adelaide and Sydney, the one where bloody Amadi apparently decided he wanted to kick 9 goals for some reason. But that game, James Jordan started on Dawson, but second half went to Rankin. So I'm thinking, well, is that because Dawson was still having an influence and they're just like, well, let's shut down Rankin? I'm not sure. So I'm sort of don't know where the tag's going to go. Is it going to go to Dawson? Is it going to go to Rankin? So it's a tough one. But I think Rankin's one of those forwards you chuck in there because I think he'll still, if he gets tagged, he'll go forward. He'll kick a couple of goals, hopefully.
That's the thing.
So.
Yeah, absolutely right, mate. Finishing it off here, though, Jackson. I think Jackson comes out here for me. I've made this prior, not thinking Darcy was playing. So that's poor from my end. But Luke Jackson, I think, comes out.
Mate, don't put yourself down too much, mate. I didn't think Darcy was going to play either. I thought with the bye for Freo next week, I thought they were going to rest him up for 2 weeks and do that. But no, so what? Jackson
Especially
would move.
His history.
Jackson moves out, and you got Cameron at 6, Green 7, Marek 8, Thilthorpe 9. Is that probably what you're having?
Yeah, absolutely. And Toby Green is exactly the person that's coming in. Look, the only reason I didn't want to start him is because, at points this year, he's been pretty low. And he started off really, really well. And we thought, okay, Toby Green's back to his best. But he had this run of games, and I'll read it out here. It was 55, 77, 58, 86, and 79, which if you hear those numbers, you just think, little yuck. And he was getting CBAs as well throughout this time. So it wasn't like he wasn't getting an opportunity to go in the midfield and run through there and even get his hands on the ball more. But, milestone game last week, he had 3 goals. Was it 5 behinds or something? Like that game you mentioned could have been monstrous, 200 plus easy if he had his kicking boots on. But even still, Toby Green scored 161 fantasy points with 19 kicks and 9 handballs, so 28 disposals for him. He was fantastic. And against Richmond, who I just don't think will have an answer for him, it makes me feel good that I can get him back in and not have to worry about having to toss up between Jackson in a really tough matchup. Now I can just ride Toby and go that form.
Yeah, it makes it a bit easier. Wits is. I know we said O'Brien's the toughest, but you feel like Wits is probably the toughest as well, right? Because of how many points he doesn't give up. I don't know if a ruck in GameDay Squad's turned up against Wits. Maybe there might have been one if lucky, but yeah, he's been pretty hard. So I think Jackson out, it probably makes our decision pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thilthorpe's a bit of a pod. I actually see him playing really well. He played well last week. He'll play well again this week against the Swannies.
Who would match up as a Swans fan? Who do you reckon goes to him? Because obviously Melican's still suspended.
Melican's in. He's in.
Oh, Melican did come in. Okay. Was it
first game back?
Melican probably goes to Fogg, I'd probably say. And I think maybe McCartan might get the big job.
Yeah. Well, Taylor's back in as well. So we've actually got 3 forwards to sort of worry about. So pretty much Blakey's going to have to play on one of them. And that's going to be a mismatch for whoever he plays on, because we sort of always give that role to Blakey, that when there is that extra key forward, we're a bit thin in that position.
Yeah.
Because maybe if Mills was playing and didn't want to get suspended, maybe we could have tried him, but he's suspended. So can't be doing that one. Like, if you just think about the other defenders we have, like Bice isn't doing it, Roberts isn't doing it. I think it actually is going to come to Blakey. I don't think Blakey will go to Thilthorpe, though. I think he's a little bit too big of a task for him. They're probably going to go maybe him to Fogg, because Tex will just destroy him physically. Although Fogg will as well. At least Blakey has the closing speed and the athleticism to maybe make up for it a little bit around the ground. But it will be an interesting thing to watch in that game, like who he goes to, because that will be a world of opportunity for whoever's playing on Blakey to kick a couple goals.
Yep.
What's this? So fade Thilthorpe. I don't think it's fade. I think he's a great option. He's going to score well. Yeah.
A lot of people don't have a mana, right? So you're probably going to have to look at one of those guys at the bottom sort of end. And I think that Marek or Thilthorpe are probably because a lot of people are going to have Baz, a lot of people are going to have Myers, Rankin, probably Pickett as well. And then Jezza, You probably got then the last 2 spots, big filled out by Toby Green and probably Thilthorpe, because Marek's also quite rare, right? So Marek and Mana are the 2 rare ones. So maybe Thilthorpe is the guy that sort of slots in, because Jackson, you're probably not looking at now just with the tougher matchup. And Darcy.
Yeah, 100% agree, mate, for sure. But you know what we're going to do? It's time to show your squad. Quickly talk through it. We are quickly approaching 7:30 here. So, mate, get into it. This is the Bales Nails for this round. Talk us through.
Yep. So two small changes to the squad as well, which I'll touch on in a sec. So, obviously got Zorko there, put some salary on the guys I think will be top. So I've gone for Whitfield and Ash with the Richmond matchup there. Nasiah, Sinclair, Martin, and Holmes are there. The one change I've made is I have gone Lockie Ash down to a gold version, and I'll explain why I've gone that in a sec. Midfield, Dawson, Merritt, Dunkley, Brayshaw, Green, and Steele. I think Steele over Dacos is probably the main change that people probably thinking is maybe a bit of a pod move, but just a bit worried about the tag there this week. So I've gone for that one. Gorn, and obviously I have gone Nank. I think he can go quite well this week against Briggsy, so he is there. Then obviously Baz has got the extra salary on him as always. Rankin, I have got a mana there, which is nice. I don't have a bronze. I don't have another mana to put in my starter squad, which is bad. But
neither, unfortunately.
I've got one there, which is good. And then Myers, Toby Green, Jeremy Cameron. But I've got Jackson there, so I've made the change while we're live with the Darcy news. He's gone out. I don't have a bronze Cozzy Pickett, so I've gone a silver Pickett, who I've got, and then I've gone platinum Ash down to gold Ash to make that work. So that's the only change. So silver Cozzy Pickett in the forward line, and I've got a gold Lockie Ash instead there. So that's just the one change. But yeah, that's the squad, and I'm feeling pretty good with it this week.
Mate, you've been on fire this year in the top 20 for seasonal. So absolutely loading up there the salary cap. Is this a normal strategy that you roll out?
No, it's been something I've tried last few weeks just to see if it can work a bit better. Just because I normally like to spread the salary out, but last week I had a platinum Nick Martin and a platinum Zach Merritt, and that came in really handy. I also had a platinum Jordan Dawson, so I nailed those ones. But then I had Shea Bolton instead of Myers. I had Marshall instead of Gorn. So those two picks probably didn't really matter. But if I could have nailed those picks, it would have been a massive week. So so just hoping that maybe that's a strategy I can adopt going forward.
Mate, love it for sure. And quickly, because everyone always calls me out, although they look at my rankings. This is my squad. So I do start the players that I put in my rankings, but you can see how I've distributed some of my salary cap. I'm sort of taking a big swing at a couple of players like Sarong, Tom Green. I really think they have positive matchups. And if this can all click, then I think it's going to pay some big dividends in terms of my score for the round. And then I've got Wanganeen Miller as a gold as well. And then a couple of silvers there on some other players who I also think have some matchups. Ideally, I would like to get Jeremy Cameron up to a silver or gold, but I actually don't have one. So if I can work that out by the end of the weekend, I actually love the fact that you put salary cap on Jezza because of that goal kicking ability. I think that's a big play and something I'm going to look to try to do before that game on the weekend. I
actually did that change because of our chat last night, and I went to the transfer market, bought a Jeremy Cameron Platinum and chucked that into the classic side.
What are they now? I'll have to go find out after this. But Bales, thanks so much for joining, taking the time out of your afternoon. Of course, you've been on fire this year, not only with GameDay Squad, but all the stuff that you're doing. For anyone here in the GameDay Squad community that isn't sure what you do, where to find you, etc., do you just want to give them that information and let them know how they can get in touch?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate you having me on. It's always good to jump on here and be the guest instead of the host. So, but yeah, no, you can find me at BallsDT across the socials and find us at AFL Fantasy Fans. We're either on Twitter or wherever you get your podcasts, and check out the pod and obviously the YouTube channel. We're closing in on 4,000 subscribers as well. That's our big goal that I set at the start of the year. I think we're just over 100. So if you haven't checked it out,
amazing,
and want to check it out, we do daily content, and we've got some watch-alongs and stuff. Probably not going to do one tonight, but I'll probably do one tomorrow night for the game. So if you want to come chill and hang out during the game, then head over.
Mate, love it. Well, everyone, that's going to wrap us up for another live stream for the Aussie Rules live show, previewing round 12. Thanks so much for all your time. The best of luck in round 12. And Auntie Booger, I'll speak to you very soon. This is exactly what I needed. The best of luck, everyone. Have a great weekend watching the footy and enjoy the footy tonight. We'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out.
See ya.